Collapse erases the illusion that money has weight. The symbols printed on paper lose their function the moment logistics fail, institutions fracture, and biological threats rise faster than supply lines can answer them. What governs value shifts instantly. Not preference, not culture, physics, biology, probability of death within the next 24 hours. When a grid dies, the kill mechanisms surface. Exposure strips heat from the body faster than calories can replace it. Contaminated water seeds infection that accelerates dehydration. Noise reveals position and draws predators, human or environmental. Light betrays movement. Equipment fractures under strain with no replacements coming. Morale collapses into panic, and panic destroys judgment. Every threat converges toward one law. Survival is a measurable equation, not a narrative. In that equation, currency becomes whatever neutralizes risk with the highest reliability. Trust no longer flows from institutions. It flows from function. Items that solve immediate biological or logistical dangers rise above gold, above ammunition, above stored wealth. They become mediums of exchange because they reduce uncertainty, extend operational time, and keep bodies alive across another cycle of darkness. History repeats the pattern in every failed city, every besieged zone, every broken economy. Value migrates from the symbolic to the mechanical. And in that migration, 7 unexpected items emerge, quietly, consistently, ruthlessly, as the real currencies of collapse. Heat becomes currency because cold kills with mechanical precision. Hypothermia obeys physics, not negotiation. When ambient temperature drops and wind exposure strips thermal energy from the body faster than metabolism can replace it, survival time contracts to minutes. In a collapse, the grid that once delivered guaranteed heat dies first. Fuel distribution halts, insulation fails, shelter becomes porous. People learn the truth rapidly. Fire is not warmth. Fire is life expectancy. That is why high-efficiency, fast-ignition fuel sources rise as trade power. Alcohol gel, chemical warmers, compressed biofuel bricks, items once ignored on store shelves, become negotiable units equal to hours of guaranteed survival. History proves the pattern. In sieges, in blackout winters, in refugee corridors across frozen terrain, death rates spike, not from violence, but from exposure. Populations trade food for heat, tools for heat, ammunition for heat. A single packet of sustained output fuel extends operational capability through the night. That reliability transforms it into a universal medium of exchange. No ideology can replace thermal physics. Cold removes all illusions of value. Psychology reinforces the trade. Warmth creates trust because it is immediate, undeniable, and felt at the skin before the mind can argue. A person who can grant heat becomes a temporary authority. A group that controls fuel becomes a temporary economy. Scarcity amplifies the effect. Burnable material disappears faster than expected because collapse compresses population behavior into repetition. Everyone burns more than they think they do. In this environment, fuel does not circulate as a comfort item. It circulates as a survival contract. Each block packet or canister represents one simple equation. With it, you wake. Without it, you might not. That certainty is why heat generation fuel becomes the first unexpected currency of a collapsed world. Silence becomes a weapon because sound becomes a beacon. In collapse conditions, noise is no longer background. It is a broadcast of location, vulnerability, and intent. Human hearing evolved to detect anomalies, and predators, human or otherwise, exploit that instinct with ruthless efficiency. When infrastructure breaks and ambient city noise fades, Every footstep, every metallic rattle, every tool strike travels farther than people expect. Buildings without insulation turn into echo chambers. Empty streets transform into acoustic corridors. A single dropped object can compromise an entire group. That is why noise control tools rise into the realm of currency. Suppressors, improvised oil filter dampeners, rubberized cloth wraps, insulation pads torn from abandoned structures. None of these items are glamorous, yet they neutralize one of the oldest kill mechanisms in survival: detection. Historical collapse zones show the same rhythm. In wartime urban environments, civilians learned that the loudest households died first. During blackouts, looters followed noise rather than light. In failed states, militias hunted not by tracking footprints, but by listening for metal-on-metal contact. Silence became the final form of camouflage, more decisive than darkness or cover. With manufacturing halted and hardware stores stripped bare, noise-dampening materials acquire scarcity value. People trade rations for cloth that mutes footsteps, barter tools for padded sheaths that prevent clatter, exchange medicine for anything that lowers acoustic signature during night movement. These objects do not merely conceal, they alter probability. Every decibel removed reduces the radius within which danger can find you. That reduction translates directly into bargaining power. Fear strengthens the currency. Groups living in constant tension experience a neurological sharpening. Every sound spikes adrenaline, raises heart rate, erodes judgment. Tools that quiet those sounds stabilize the mind. They create an illusion of safety, and in collapse, illusion is sometimes enough to keep a group functional. The ability to move invisibly becomes a commodity. The ability to work without broadcasting presence becomes leverage. The ability to sleep without waking to echoes becomes luxury. Noise control tools earn their value because they reshape the battlefield. They turn chaos into strategy. They let you exist without being located. In a collapsed world, that is the closest thing to wealth. Water becomes lethal not when it disappears, but when it can no longer be trusted. Collapse removes the filtration plants, the chlorination cycles, the municipal testing labs, the continuous flow that once guaranteed safety. What remains is uncertainty, microbial, chemical, parasitic. People can survive weeks without food, but only days without water. And one contaminated drink can disable a healthy adult in hours. This is why the true currency is not the water itself, but the tools that verify its purity. Test strips, UV pens, flocculant packets, portable chemical indicators, simple devices that transform guesswork into certainty. History reinforces the principle. In refugee corridors, families traded valuables not for bottled water, but for proof that water found along the road would not kill their children. During the Balkan sieges, rivers flowed constantly, yet dysentery overtook entire blocks because no one could verify what lurked beneath the surface. In earthquake zones, aid workers learned that distribution of test kits controlled panic more effectively than distribution of water. Trust is always more scarce than liquid. Collapse accelerates this scarcity into desperation. Verification tools become currency because they restore decision-making. A group with test capability can expand its territory, drawing from multiple water points instead of defending a single known source. That flexibility increases operational range, reduces conflict, and improves trade potential. A group without verification becomes static, frightened, and dependent. Every time they drink, they gamble with dehydration, infection, or immobilization. That vulnerability forces them into unfavorable negotiations, where even a handful of test strips command disproportionate value. Biology magnifies the stakes. Dehydration compounds error. Infection collapses strength. Parasites erode stamina silently. In a grid-down environment where medical treatment is scarce or non-existent, avoiding contamination is not convenience. It is survival math. A 10-second test can prevent a 10-day sickness. That exchange ratio is why people are willing to trade tools, weapons, fuel, even shelter for items that reveal the truth about their water supply. Verification is power because it removes fear. It redraws risk boundaries. It gives one group the ability to move while others are trapped by doubt. In a world where every decision threatens mortality, the ability to confirm safety becomes a universal medium of exchange. Water keeps you alive, but certainty keeps you human. That certainty in collapse has a price. Collapse exposes a simple mechanical truth. Nothing lasts. Gear breaks under stress, seals fail, fabric tears, containers crack, tools fracture when pushed beyond their design limits. And with manufacturing halted, every failure becomes permanent unless repaired. This is why adhesives and repair compounds transform into high-value currency. Epoxy putty, resin kits, high-torque bonding agents, industrial tape, silicone sealants. Items once buried in workshop drawers become lifelines for every group trying to survive without resupply. Historically, this shift appears in every prolonged breakdown. Frontline fighters in isolated zones traded ammunition for epoxy because a cracked canteen or fractured rifle stock threatened survival more immediately than running low on rounds. During long sieges, civilians treated strong adhesives as equivalent to food because they extended the lifespan of cooking vessels, fabric layers, and water containers. In maritime collapses, resin and sealant determined whether a vessel stayed afloat or sank. Repair materials were never accessories. They were continuity. The physics behind their value is relentless. A single tube of epoxy restores structural integrity across wood, metal, plastic, leather. A strip of industrial tape can waterproof a pack, silence loose parts, seal a crack, or bind fractured equipment. Sealants prevent contamination, preserve food, and extend tool life. Each item multiplies the operational lifespan of gear far beyond what scavenging alone can achieve. Every repair completed delays the moment a group becomes immobile or vulnerable. Scarcity accelerates the transformation into currency. Hardware stores empty in the first hours of panic. People focus on food, water, and batteries, leaving behind the very compounds that will determine medium-term survival. Days later, when gear begins to fail, the forgotten shelves suddenly become more valuable than stockpiled luxuries. Those who secured adhesives early become economic centers. Each tube, roll, or packet represents the ability to reverse entropy temporarily. And in collapse, resisting entropy is a form of power. Psychology reinforces this value. A repaired object restores confidence. A sealed leak grants peace during rain. A reinforced tool gives a sense of control in an environment ruled by decay. Groups that can repair project stability. Groups that cannot project desperation. Stability attracts trade partners and allies. Desperation attracts opportunists. Adhesives and repair compounds become currency not because they are rare, but because they resurrect function in a world where everything is breaking. They turn failure into capability. They extend the lifespan of civilization's remnants. And in a collapsing world, the ability to hold your tools together is the ability to hold your future together. When the grid falls and darkness consumes the landscape, light becomes more than illumination. it becomes a revelation of position, direction, and intent. In a collapsed world stripped of urban glow, even the smallest beam pierces vast distances. Predators, scavengers, and hostile groups learn to hunt the glow before they hunt the body. This shifts the survival equation. The objective is no longer to see, but to see without being seen. That is why light discipline optics, red filters, blackout lenses, low signature directional LEDs emerge as a form of currency. Darkness levels the battlefield. Vision becomes asymmetric warfare. A group equipped with controlled illumination gains a decisive operational advantage: movement without exposure. History has shown the pattern repeatedly. In cities during blackout warfare, those who carried unshielded lights were targeted immediately, while those with filtered beams maneuvered freely. In disaster zones, looters traced flashlights through corridors like tracking signals. In wilderness collapses, animals responded to light with predatory curiosity rather than fear. The lesson is simple. Brightness invites consequence. Light discipline tools earn value because they alter probability. A red filter preserves night vision and shortens detection radius. A directional beam reveals only what lies ahead, while hiding the user from lateral observers. A blackout lens reduces lumen spill that would otherwise reflect off surfaces and betray location. These are not conveniences. They are survival multipliers. They turn every movement into a controlled event instead of a broadcast. Scarcity increases the currency effect. Batteries drain, bulbs fail. Improvised torches burn unpredictably. People learn quickly that illumination is not renewable. The rare items that provide low-signature, efficient light last longer, leak less information, and carry higher trade value. A single lens or filter can command food, tools, or medicine because it gives something more important than brightness. It gives privacy in a world stripped of hiding places. Psychology completes the transformation. Fear intensifies in darkness. Groups crave a sense of control, and a controlled beam provides that illusion. It narrows the world into a manageable shape. But those who understand collapse learn the discipline. Control the light, or the light controls you. Light discipline optics become currency because they rewrite the rules of night. They convert vulnerability into strategy. They allow a group to navigate danger with precision instead of panic. And in a world where every unshielded lumen can cost a life, the ability to move unseen is wealth. Collapse transforms the mundane into the indispensable, and no category proves this more brutally than micro-storage and sealable containers. Not the large bins scavengers fight over, but the small units, vacuum pouches, moisture-proof tins, scent-blocking wraps, airtight microbags. Their power comes from a single governing principle. Preservation is survival. When supply chains fail, the limiting factor is no longer access, but degradation. Food spoils. Medicine absorbs moisture. Electronics corrode. Spices lose potency. Seeds mold. Everything decays faster than expected because collapse accelerates exposure, humidity, contamination, and handling cycles. History makes the pattern explicit. Besieged populations from Aleppo to Leningrad traded metal tins as if they were precious metals, because those tins protected the last remnants of consumables. In South Asian flood collapses, villagers used airtight pouches as bargaining tools for antibiotics and batteries. During long-term blackouts, scent-proof wraps determined whether dried meat stayed hidden from animals, or from humans hungry enough to become predators. Containers were never containers. They were vaults. The physics behind their value is precise. A microseal reduces oxygen, and reduced oxygen extends shelf life. A moisture barrier stops bacteria before they begin their bloom phase. A scent barrier shrinks the detection radius of food by scavengers with superior olfactory ranges. Vacuum compression shrinks volume, increasing load efficiency and reducing fatigue during movement. Every sealed packet becomes a modular survival unit that can be traded, cached, or carried without loss. Scarcity elevates these items into currency. People raid food aisles, not packaging aisles. By the time they realize preservation is more decisive than accumulation, the shelves holding micro-storage have been stripped by the few who understood the math early. Those individuals become the economic anchors of post-collapse trade. They dictate exchange rates because their containers create inventory stability, something no one else has. A single airtight pouch may secure a night of shelter. A handful of moisture-proof bags might buy medicine. A scent-proof wrap may be traded for ammunition because it guarantees that stored protein will remain undiscovered. Psychology magnifies this effect. Humans anchored in scarcity cling to anything that provides control. A sealed packet feels like a promise. A protected item feels like a future. In an environment ruled by decay, preservation becomes hope, disguised as plastic and metal. Micro-storage and sealable containers become currency because they do not store goods, they store time. And in collapse, time is the rarest commodity of all. Collapse breaks the body long before it breaks the will, and it breaks the will long before it breaks the body. Biological comfort items, caffeine packets, electrolyte tablets, sleep aids, menthol rubs, digestion stabilizers become currency because they repair the invisible systems that collapse attacks first. Cognition, stamina, mood regulation, and circadian rhythm. These are not luxuries. They are neurochemical tools that recalibrate a human operating under continuous threat. Physiology explains their value. Sleep deprivation degrades reaction time more severely than alcohol. Electrolyte imbalance cripples muscle function and accelerates heat exhaustion. Caffeine sharpens vigilance during long watches. Mild sedatives prevent panic-driven insomnia that erodes judgment. Menthol opens airways and reduces perceived discomfort, buying clarity when the mind begins to spiral. Each item provides a measurable boost to survival capability, small on paper, enormous in practice. History confirms the pattern. Soldiers in prolonged warfare hoarded stimulants and sleep regulators more fiercely than rations because alertness dictated survival. Refugees crossing deserts traded jewelry for electrolyte packs after watching dehydration dismantle entire families. During famines, people valued anything that eased nausea or stabilized digestion because retaining calories was more critical than acquiring them. Over and over, psychological stabilization items emerged as the backbone of informal economies. The collapse environment accelerates their rise to currency. Chronic stress floods the brain with cortisol, degrading memory, decision-making, and emotional stability. People snap over small disputes. Leaders make erratic choices. Groups fracture under pressure. Comfort items act as chemical governors, restoring enough equilibrium for cooperation to continue. A functioning group can trade, build, defend, and plan. A psychologically fractured group cannot even ration. Scarcity amplifies demand. Pharmacies empty instantly. Most survivors misunderstand what matters and chase antibiotics or painkillers, ignoring the everyday regulators that maintain baseline human performance. Weeks later, when deprivation begins rewriting behavior, those overlooked packets and tablets become priceless. A single electrolyte tab may buy food. A caffeine sachet may buy safe passage. A sleep aid may buy loyalty. People are willing to trade almost anything to feel functional again. These items become currency because they restore the one resource collapse erodes most aggressively: mental bandwidth. They return clarity, discipline, and emotional control. They allow a human to behave like a human rather than a cornered animal. In a world where mistakes kill faster than bullets, anything that prevents a mistake becomes wealth. Biological comfort items do exactly that. Collapse rewrites value by stripping every object down to its survival function. Gold cannot warm a body. Paper money cannot purify water. Digital balances cannot silence footsteps in an empty street. When systems fail, the only metric that matters is threat neutralization per unit. How effectively an item reduces the probability of death in the next cycle of daylight and darkness. Every economy that has ever broken follows the same trajectory. People abandon symbolic wealth. They migrate toward tools that extend time, restore capability, or protect the body from physics and biology. The shift is not cultural. It is mathematical. The 7 unexpected currencies: heat fuel, silence tools, water verification, repair compounds, controlled light optics, microstorage, and biological stabilizers, do not emerge by chance. They emerge because each one intercepts a specific kill mechanism: exposure, detection, contamination, entropy, visibility, decay, psychological collapse. Remove any one of these threats and survival probability rises. Remove several, and a group becomes stable enough to build trade networks, negotiate territory, and plan beyond the next hour. That stability becomes the foundation of post-collapse value. Trust also transforms. People no longer trust systems, promises, or institutions. They trust outcomes. Anything that reliably produces a life-preserving result becomes a medium of exchange. Anything that fails becomes dead weight. The economy simplifies into a brutal equation. Value equals risk reduced. Those who control items that reduce risk control the flow of trade. Those who do not depend on them. Dependency creates hierarchy. Hierarchy reshapes the landscape faster than violence. The final truth is cold. Collapse does not care what people use to treasure. It cares only how efficiently they adapt to an environment governed by scarcity, physics, and fear. Wealth becomes the ability to live another day. Currency becomes whatever grants that ability. And the groups that understand this early are the ones that cease reacting to collapse and begin surviving it.